It looks like you got one of these guys, a Tesla terrorist,
right.
And he's got some lipstick. What's that?
You know, Jesse, this guy is charged with committing the Tesla offense in New Mexico in February, and then the GOP headquarters in March. These people thought they could get away with it. They can't. This is our 5th major arrest on Tesla. I guess they are listening. They better listen. This guy is looking at 40 years in prison. I have directed my prosecutors not to make any offers. He is going away, if convicted, for 40 years. He is the 5th major arrest we've made, and stay tuned for more.
Salvador by mistake. The Supreme Court effectively ordered the Trump administration to facilitate this man's return to the U.S. from that El Salvadoran prison without explicitly defining what that would look like. Oval Office, it was a reporter who finally asked El Salvador's president if he would please return this man to the United States. The El Salvadoran president called the question, quote, preposterous. Of course he wouldn't.
President Trump has multiple members of his administration take turns ripping CNN Kathleen Collins after she asked why an alleged MS-13 member was deported. Pam Bondi responded to this question. I know she didn't like that.
First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, 2 courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the full designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kill a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13. I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
Well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I'll smuggle to the United States. How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle this to the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
You're releasing inside of Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of it into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Yes, if I can recall, the Supreme Court ordered this, so that this guy should be returned. But from the story I'm seeing to this, things have changed. I didn't even know that this guy was like this. I've seen liberals like The View going off on the Trump administration, like, oh, this, that. I've seen that every single day. Now, this man is making it clear I can't do that. It is like I'm bringing in this kind of person into the United States. See the story, it has changed. And now I'm even finding out that he's a citizen in this country. Very complicated, right? This has been something Democrats are demonstrating on the street recently.
An error and it wasn't a mistake. Look, so this, I think you're speaking about their public view of the case.
I'm telling you that their view of it is that
public.
It's an El Salvador citizen who was sent back to El Salvador, who was in the country illegally, who, according to some people in his long process, which does include an existing deportation order, believes that he has an affiliation with MS-13. As I said, there's no version of this man's life where he comes back. And let me say one more thing. The people that want him brought back need to understand something. If the president of El Salvador releases him, and we do facilitate his return, when he lands in this country, one of two things will happen. He will be arrested, and then he'll either be sent back to El Salvador, where he is now, or some other country that I promise you don't want to go to. He's not going to be allowed to come back and live in this country as though he is a U.S. citizen.
That's literally the definition of tyranny, right? So here's what's going to happen. We're going to throw him in jail. No, there's a thing called the rule of law and due process, which has not been followed in this case. And if I have a slightly optimistic take on this, I actually think this is going to come back to bite the Trump administration, because what's going to happen is the next time this goes up the court system, they have absolutely zero credibility to say, don't worry, you can file a habeas petition, you can get your person back. The courts are not going to allow this to happen. And the idea that the Trump administration has the right of fiat to just decide to ship somebody off to another country, that is fundamentally opposed to everything a constitutional democracy
They have the ability to deport people who have deportation orders, do they not? He got due process. He has a deportation order.
But then why didn't they make that argument?
A withholding of his removal order, so he was in the country.
Why? Why did he have a withholding?
Because an immigration judge ruled that.
But why? What was the argument? Because he was fearful of a gang that hasn't existed in El Salvador for 4 years. There's more of that gang in Los Angeles than there is in El Salvador.
That's not for us to decide. That's the immigration judge decides that.
Can I just tell everyone something right now? I heard President Trump say in the Oval Office that CNN hates our country. CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. I've been here for 32 years, and I see a rhetorical device in him trying to say such a thing. That said, I want to focus on the news that we heard.
The White House press secretary has called one of these deportation mistakes a quote-unquote clerical error. Well, if it's a clerical error, then bring them back.
Right.
Is this the immigration policy people thought they were voting for?
I don't believe so. So listen, the status quo of doing nothing and allowing just limitless undocumented migration to this country was unsustainable. People voted to have the border secured, but then they wanted to primarily deal with people who were undocumented and committed crimes in this country. 80% of Americans support that. This whole table supports that. But there is a key element that is involved here. Due process. You cannot simply look at somebody and say, well, I think they're a criminal, or there may be allegations. We have a system in this country where you would put the people before a judge, they have their day in court to make their case. And on top of that, I would add, they should be returned to their country of origin, not a third-party country that they have no connection to, no relatives in a jail there. Let their home country decide if they're going to be jailed and give them that process. But sending them somewhere they've never lived is honestly horrifying. And if one person slips through the cracks, that's reason enough to pause, shut it down, and decide how you do it the right way.
It's cruel.
Yeah, cruel. The cruelty is, you just said it's cruel, Joy, and the cruelty seems to me to be the point.
Yeah.
And when you ask the question, is this what people voted for? Yeah, I do think so. I think people thought, it's not going to happen to me or mine. That's what I think. You know, it's okay for it to happen to your neighbor. It's okay to happen to that other person. But now that it's happening to American citizens, naturalized citizens, people with green cards, people that are legally here, people's sisters, brothers, sister-in-laws, now I think people are thinking, oh, but I didn't vote for that. I didn't vote for my family to be hurt. And it's a lack of empathy in this country. It is a lack of empathy. Well, the thing is,
they could make phone calls.
If the United States has an agreement with, let's say, El Salvador to house people, right? They're paying El Salvador.
Yes, what Trump is doing should be appreciated by everyone, but calculating the view will never see that. If you keep some of these people behind some Austin house, like they should stay there, this lady would transfer to another location. She won't be able to stay there for a single night because of how dangerous some of these people are. If Trump is doing this, struggling to remove these people behind your neighborhood, and you don't appreciate it, then you are ungrateful. Yes. Talking about American citizens, so you should be someone committing crimes here and there. Then we have where we can keep you, to correct you, to be a better person. We can take you there. I'm just asking a question because these people seem not to be understanding what is even happening. As of this case, I believe you heard Pam Bondi making it clear. They have the record, they have everything she's saying here is there. They had reasons to rethink about this guy. Yeah. So what else can you tell me? If the guy was in nonsense, like Joe Rogan said here, it's a different situation. I could have looked into it, but now the guy was an illegal. This is exactly what Trump administration is doing right now. So you will understand. And more to that, the guy was committing crimes. If you see videos after this, that is just for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you, and please share the video.
Under the Alien Registration Act is today. All foreign nationals present in the United States longer than 30 days must register with the federal government. Failure to comply with this is a crime, punishable by fines, imprisonment, or both.
Has said in the case of this Mahmoud Khalil, he's the Columbia University Hamas-loving activist, not my politics by a long shot. He's for the destruction of Western civilization, in his words, just to give you where he's at. Okay. As you know, 12 days ago, I had dinner with President.
Yes, the Supreme Court said Nazis could march in Skokie, Illinois, a town full of Holocaust survivors. I mean, that's the bar that we have.
Generally called insider trading, and that would
I know better than anybody. Forget about the economists who know better. Forget about people who know history. I alone can fix it.
Have a great day, everyone. Take a little time to enjoy the view. And remember, the resistance is real. You're not alone.
Has anyone else noticed how women on the left are the most miserable group of people? So
Harris is not president. Trump is. And if you don't like him, folks,
starting on.
Wish the
and a lot of people who didn't vote.
And finally, new rule to those on the right.
Isn't exactly getting the hero's welcome.
That the Americans finally realized what the reality was.
This is a Fox News alert, a crushing blow for Democrats who had hoped against hope.
Brad Schimmel, that has included Elon Musk pouring tens of millions of dollars.
I think you saw a repudiation of the fact that.
Do you think the Republican takeaways tonight are going to.
The margin right now, Randy Fine.
Everybody, he had never been.
Under the Alien Registration Act is today. All foreign nationals present in the United States.
I never felt I had to walk on eggshells around him.